Okay, well, I'm really excited to be joined by the three of you to have a conversation about the soon-to-be launched health technology assessment. I'm Kathleen from the NHAA. I'm the Vice President of the Naturopaths and Herbalists Association of Australia, joined by Amy Steele, Ivor Lloyd and John Wardle. And we decided to have this conversation because there's been a huge amount of work that's gone into this, the HTA, the Health Technology Assessment, but not a lot of people understand what it is, why it's important to the profession, and the role of different organisations and individuals to get this off the ground and actually make it happen. So I'm joined by three of the key drivers and authors to help explain this to us. So thank you, all three of you, for being here.
Thanks, Kate.
Yeah, it's lovely. So I wanted to ask you, first of all, can you explain what is a health technology assessment? John, you start.
Sure. Thanks, Kath. Basically, it's a very boring word for a very exciting document. So in bureaucratic speak, it's the official document and the official way that governments determine which interventions are effective and useful and should be integrated more. So, you know, in a much more accurate way, it's a real great opportunity for the naturopathic profession to highlight the great work it is doing. And importantly, the great work it could be doing if governments actually paid more attention to us. So it's highlighting the potential as well as the actual practice of naturopathy. Okay. And what does that mean for the actual naturopathic profession? Like, how will that benefit our profession, both in Australia and abroad, globally?
I'll take that. As John said, the health technology assessment is an opportunity for the naturopathic profession to clarify who we are and what we do. Because it is a recognized format by the government, it has its own credibility in doing an HTA, because there's a format that you had to follow, a very strict format that we had to follow. And in doing the HTA, it consolidates the research and the knowledge that we have on the profession. We did about 7 different surveys of the educational institutes, the professions, the naturopaths for this content. So it really is a consolidation of the knowledge we have so far on the naturopathic profession globally. So it provides a foundation for the profession to move forward, and in a way that is consistent and that integrates the profession into one, where we can say, this is who we are, and this is the information we have to back who we are.
So important. And there's so much work that's gone into it, right? Like even you describing that there, it sounds like a lot of work. And I know a number of organisations like ourselves at the NHAA who've been involved in it, and then individuals from the profession that have been involved over how long now? How long have you been working on this?
Oh, I think John first talked about the HTA in 2017. So since about then, and we have used the surveys from 2015, 2016, and from there. So yeah, and the writing itself, Amy, what, 2 years?
You've been writing? 2 years.
Yeah.
2 years.
Yeah.
It's a labour of love. And so you've described some of the work that's gone into it, or you did describe some of the work that went into this, Ivor, but can you tell me a bit more, maybe Amy, about the type of research that has informed the HTA?
Yeah, absolutely. So the HTA is informed by two sort of bodies of research. One being original research that the WNF led and initiated to fill gaps about understanding our global practice and profession, because whilst we have pockets of knowledge from some countries, we didn't have a really good sense of where the landscape globally. And so that is really important foundational work that sits in the first third of the HTA and describes practice behaviours and prevalence of use and educational standard practice regulation issues, all sorts of really fundamental work that is really vital for policymakers to make sense of the naturopathic profession and how they might be able to appropriately integrate naturopathy into the health system. And then the other probably 2/3 of the book is based on the last 30 years of research really produced by the naturopathic community. And it's been a fascinating and enlightening experience from even myself as a naturopathic researcher, realizing just how much I knew there was research out there looking into naturopathic treatments, but anyone out there who says there's no evidence surrounding naturopathic practice it needs to look at this book. We've got over 2,000 articles published in the last 30 years, more than 300 clinical studies looking at more than 100 different health populations, and of those studies, we've over 80% of them have had a positive positive outcome from the clinical research. So there's some really good evidence in there, and it pulls it all together and it presents it in a very summarized form, but it provides all the information you need to look into it in more detail or access the papers that you need to. And it's a compendium basically of all things naturopathic research, including the links to the other 1,800 papers that we've written that pulls on all of the other research health researchers have put together. So not just the research that we've conducted as clinical research, but all of our systematic reviews and meta-analyses, and really highlighting how much naturopathy is contributing to generating new knowledge for health.
That's amazing. And I mean, a huge amount of work. I know I keep saying that, but it's because it is. And the more you explain it, the more that becomes apparent. Obviously, you three have been very involved and instrumental in driving this, but who else has been involved in the research and the writing of the HTA?
We've had 50 authors from 10 countries and 6 world regions. So it's without doubt the largest collaborative research endeavor that the naturopathic profession has ever undertaken. We have to acknowledge the fact that we're also pulling that information together from all of those naturopathic researchers over the last 30 years who produced knowledge, and all of our traditional forefathers and mothers who've contributed knowledge as well, that we've summarized and tried to translate into a format that people outside of the profession can really make sense of our unique contribution that we might have.
Yes.
And if I can add on top of that, other than the people who actually contribute to the writing, we had, especially the first third of the book, we had WNF member organizations who recommended people to review it. So a lot of the book has been reviewed by the multiple people in the profession. So we had about, I'm going to say 60, 70 people from the profession who read certain sections of the book. Because it was really important to us, and it is when you do an HTA, that we may be the lead authors on the book, but it truly is to speak to the profession and say, this is a book about the profession, and the contribution from them, and the time that people have taken to give us feedback and to ensure that, their organization, their country, their world region is represented the way that they see it as well, is something that we put a lot of focus in.
It's a gift. It's a gift from the profession to the profession.
Right, yeah.
And so now that it's about to be launched, what are we going to do with it? How is it going to be used by, first of all, I suppose, the WNF, and then the member organisations? I don't know if Ivor or John, you want to field that one?
Thanks, Kath. Look, it's a resource, for naturopathic individuals, organisations, and institutions to be able to go to government or local health decision makers or local health districts or whatever, whoever is making the decisions on whether naturopaths should or should not be involved in health services, to show them what we can do. And in government, we make the joke that there's 2 speeds: stop and tomorrow. Governments are essentially lazy and very risk averse. So this document is basically doing 3/4 of the work for them. So it's a resource that people can actually go to government and say, look, this is what we can do. This is how we can do it. It's in the format that you actually need to do these things in. Let's talk about how to integrate naturopathy. So that's the vision that we have for actually this document. It's a gift to the profession so that the profession can grow in areas where it is established, and establish itself in new areas where it's not established yet.
And if I can add to that, because John is right, is that we have helped some organizations in their regulatory efforts since we've been established, and the questions are always the same. What is the safety of naturopathy? What is the cost effectiveness? What is the research to support it? what are the different regulatory formats that are out there? So all of the questions that are asked from, let's say, from the regulatory point of view, this consolidates them. And then looking at it from an educational point of view, one of the things that when we look at the education is really saying there is consistency in education in what includes naturopathic education. So it will be a guide for educational institutes and for people who are looking at accrediting them. It'll be a guide to support from a regulatory point of view. For practitioners like myself, when we're in practice, it is really helpful to have a document. So when people come in who aren't sure about naturopathic, then this can give them that. It has literally the weight, right? Literally the weight. But the information that someone can look at it and say, okay, yeah, I'm confident that this has the information that it needs. So it was interesting because as we wrote it, and I'm sure Amy will comment on this, recently we had a conversation as we were finishing it that says, okay, how much of it is a book and how much of it is a government document? And we had to play with that. It's a dance, and which I think we've done very well, and we've got some expert advice, feedback on this is how you have to do it. But it is that thing. It is for the profession, but it's written in the language for government and accreditors and things like that as well.
Yeah.
Amy, do you want to add anything to that?
I just, one of the things that I've also reflected on as this book has been coming into formation is there's also a lot of knowledge and information in here that will be so interesting for the profession itself. So whilst it's written for and targeted as an audience for government, it's undoubted that people will find it fascinating. I think it's going to be a really valuable resource for students and curriculum to understand. It's got a really great sense of how naturopathy is practiced around the world, and what the strengths are and the opportunities might be. And I think it's going to be a resource in that way directly for the profession, as well as benefiting the profession by being for government.
Yeah.
And one of the things I would like to add, just when Amy's saying that, is when we were going through some of the chapters, it's that reminder that says, yes, this is the importance of hydrotherapy, and there's lots of research there that shows exactly what yoga is doing. And when we look at the cancer section, is saying, you can almost, John highlighted a number of times saying, this is the role the naturopathic profession has had in integrative oncology, in the gut microbiome, in psychology and the nutritional effects of that. So we've had such a integral role to play in many aspects, and it highlights that, and it reminds the profession, this is the importance of what our profession has given even to the greater healthcare community.
So how are we going to be able to get our hands on it? I know that copies are going to member organisations, but what if individuals want to have a look at it?
They will be able to purchase them through the WNF. Right. Yes. Yeah. And so there will be an ebook. There will be an ebook, and there will be a 600. We didn't talk about the size. A 650-page hardcover book. So
yeah.
That's that heavy text.
That's heavy. Yeah. It's got the weight. Yeah.
Oh, it's so wonderful. I mean, I've read bits and pieces of it, but I can't wait to physically see the whole thing together. As obviously a physical testament to all of the work that's been done now. And as you said, Amy, that reflects the history of our profession and the work that's been done by our forebears that is being continued by us and then future generations.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, we do have a synopsis that is coming out first on the book, and there will be aspects of the book, the synopsis and aspects of the book, that will be translated into 8-9 languages. So not the whole book, but we'll be working with member organizations for key chapters on regulation or things like that, safety and economics of naturopathic care, those things that they really require, and supporting the translation process, because we really do want all of our members from around the world to be able to use it, and to make use of the book.
Great. Well, I feel like even I know more about it, even just from this brief conversation, and I thought I knew about it. Is there anything else you wanted to add? Anything that we haven't discussed that's really important for people to know about the HTA?
Maybe just to acknowledge, sorry, Ova, I was just going to just acknowledge the fact that it honestly would not have happened without the contribution of the NHAA. And I think and whilst, you know, there was additional support from other areas of the profession, that initial and substantial contribution of the NHAA has meant that this has come into fruition. And just to acknowledge that, because it's a step that was a bit of a step into the unknown. And yeah, it's very gratefully received.
Well, I think we recognise the significance of this work and how important it is for the profession here in Australia and globally. And yeah, I'm glad we made that investment.
No, yes, thank you. Thank you. That's been great. Yeah.
Us too. It's a profession that's worth investing in. So thank you so much. And I just think it's into getting naturopathy to those who really need it and where it can do the most help.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thanks everyone for your time. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing the HTA go forth and prosper.
Thanks, Kath.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.